say good evening, everyone. As you look around the room, you see various symbols. See the nativity scene over here. This, that, and the other. I just like for y'all to know that everything we've been doing tonight, it's all about me. All the songs we've been singing, ultimately, it's all about me. All the decorations, it's all about me. That's cute as an illustration. It's not funny at all. I mean, they'll drag me out of town on a rail and run me off a cliff. That's not a good way to keep your job at Johnson University. Well, I mean, now you see why they want to run him off a cliff. I mean, he's taking these events, these holidays, these rituals, these rhythms that shape their understanding as the people of God and ways that God is presenting himself and his work among the people. And he's saying, this is about me. I am the light of the world. I am the bread of life. I am the vine. Whoa, Bubba. You're going to say stuff like that, you better be right. And of course, they don't think he is. And so, guardians of orthodoxy, they want to take him out. Well, of course, they're wrong, but the whole point is you've got to understand the background in order to effectively communicate the teaching. Because the two are very much connected. These are just all, I'm just trying to introduce ideas to help you see the importance of the gospel writers as portrait artists and the different colors with which they paint, because these are what you need to take into consideration as you attempt to portray Jesus. So what I'm going to suggest is, when you were preaching from an event, let's take something like the feeding of the 5,000. Remember how many Gospels include the feeding of the 5,000? I'll give you a hint. It's less than 5. Am I losing y'all? That wasn't funny. Am I losing y'all? It's less than 5. It's more than 3. The feeding of the 5,000 is included in all 4 Gospels. Now, here's what tends to happen. A lot of times we compress the gospel events into one big mushed up composite. We take the 4 events, the 3 events, the 2 accounts of the event, and we smush them together. We blur the gospel distinctives. We blend together the individual portraits and try to preach Jesus in a melting pot sort of way. And in so doing, rather than accomplishing the purposes of any of the 4 gospel writers, we almost do a 5th separate thing. And what New Testament scholars and preaching scholars, are advocating is trying, when you preach a gospel event, to preach it from the perspective and with the emphases of that gospel writer. Sometimes we've been so concerned to harmonize the gospel accounts from an apologetic standpoint, to fill in the details of the story in order to preach the event, that we actually end up doing something that you might argue it's actually less biblical if you take seriously how the gospel writers are trying to preach Jesus himself. I at least would have trouble arguing that it's more biblical to mush it together. You say, well, but we've got a completed canon of Scripture. That's true. But why does it include 4 separate Gospels? Yeah, so maybe there's wisdom in that in terms of being able to connect to particular issues or concerns, might be particularly timely at particular points in time, so on and so forth. So what I want you to do in here is take seriously which gospel your text comes from. And rather than just preaching the event, preaching it in ways that connect to that author's emphases. Events, for example, don't always occur in the same context. Sometimes a writer's developing a thematic thread, and you'll see an event in the middle of a thematic thread, so it's being used differently than it might be in another text. Some of this we'll talk about. When I get to the discourse material, we'll talk about this. That'll be next time. Let me show you. I told you I'd show you how taking seriously the individual Gospels matters, even at the level of structure, right? Let me show you some stuff about how structure preaches. Every sermon's got a structure, right? Well, the gospel writers, in part, preach through structure. Structure is a preaching decision. It is a communicative decision. So let me just show you some stuff. For example, I mentioned that Matthew compresses the teaching of Jesus into 5 distinct sections in his book. So you got Matthew 1 through 4, which for purposes of this discussion, I'm not going to really talk about, but you get the baptism of Jesus, Matthew 3, the temptations of Jesus, and the starting of his early Galilean ministry, chapter 4. Then, what do you get? You get the Sermon on the Mount in chapters 5 through 7. So what's that? It's teaching. Sermon on the Mount. Chapters 8 and 9 are actions, ministry encounters, and miracles. Chapter 10, teaching, which is focused on sending out the 12 and mission. Here, Jesus' followers continue the ministry that he has been demonstrating here. Jesus sends them out with power and authority to do the kinds of things he has been doing in chapters 8 and 9. Jesus' authority is established here in the Sermon on the Mount. Because chapters 5, 17 through 20 are about Jesus coming not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. You have heard it said, but I say. You get down to the end, and what are people commenting about? They're commenting on the authority of Jesus. Now, if you're following along from the earliest part of Matthew's gospel, the genealogy in the very demonstrating Jesus' identity in fulfillment of the promise to David, in fulfillment of the promise to Abraham about an enduring Davidic line. So from the earliest stages of Matthew's gospel, Jesus as Davidic king, Jesus as authority, is established from the very beginning. I may talk about the genealogy depending on whether or not I have time. That's established early. The Sermon on the Mount presents Jesus as an authoritative teacher. You've heard it said, but I say. You get down to the end, everybody says, wow, this guy doesn't teach like any rabbi we've heard before. Authority. This guy's a good preacher. Wow. Say it again backwards. Wow. Chapters 8 and 9. Actions involving authority. Miracles, right? Cleansing of the leper. Healing and forgiving of the paralytic. Calming of the storm. Authority over different realms. Sickness. Evil spirits. Authority over different realms. Now in chapter 10, Jesus sends out his followers in kingdom power, with kingdom authority, to extend his mission, and the teaching in chapter 10 all relates to that mission. Chapters 11 and 12. What happens at the end of chapter 10? Oh, by the way, it may go a little rough for you at times, but a servant is not greater than his master. Is a student greater than his teacher? Oh. But they do this to me. They're going to do this to you. But hey, if you end up before the authorities, don't worry about what's said. Which implies some hostility, some difficulty, some resistance from other authorities. Chapters 11 and 12. It's not so much a teaching chunk. Again, it's ministry, encounters, and actions. Just like here, because you get stuff like the calling of Matthew back here. Encounters and actions. So this starts with John the Baptist. Jesus, are you really the one? Because I'm in prison here, and I don't know, this isn't making real good sense. And ends with the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit passage, where the people who supposedly know God best are saying that Jesus is doing what he's doing in the power of the devil. That resistance is the framework for the parable of the sower. How do you explain the varied responses to Jesus' ministry? Jesus is a good preacher, so why doesn't everybody respond? The parable of the sower really, in many ways, connects back to this and explains the varied responses to Jesus' ministry. And the rest of the sermon and parables in Matthew 13 all deals with different kingdom realities that flow from it. Teaching. I'm going to keep going here quickly in the interest of time. Teaching in chapter 18, particularly related to how Jesus' followers are to relate to one another in community. Get the denouncing of the Pharisees in chapters 23, and then the end times talk in chapters 24 and 25. Follow called Jerusalem Mirrors the End of the World. It's hard to tell what Jesus is talking about when, but in any event, that's what's going on. And then, 26 through 28. Here's what I want to emphasize about instruction. How many teaching sections? 5. Who's Matthew writing to? Jews. How many books in Torah? 5. It could be that through structure, Jesus is being presented as, he is presented as the new Moses. He is presented as the fulfillment not only of that category, but in ways that we'll talk about in just a bit. This dynamic is going to significantly influence, for example, how I might preach from Matthew 8, 1 through 4, the cleansing of the leper, in a different way than when I preached from the cleansing of the leper last year in Johnson, Florida Chapel, from Mark chapter 1. So I'll talk about that when we get to miracles.